Main event of the evening.
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today, you'll be discussing Season 5, Episode 24, Do You Want to Dance?
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Do You Want to Dance?
We open with Howard and Marion getting ready to go to Joni's parent-teacher conference. Joni urges them,
Fine, but you don't have to believe everything they say.
Once they leave, Richie is joined in the living room by Fonzie, who is returning some albums he borrowed from Howard and Marion. Richie wants to know if Fonzie is coming to the intramural game, but Fonzie is heading over to the ballet studio to pick up Colleen, his ballet dancer girlfriend. And then they have, other plans. Colleen's unlike any girl Fonzie has ever dated before. She's got Fonzie listening to classical music.
Montavani.
And on their last date, she ate her soup without making any noise. Richie feigns amazement and leaves for his game.
Oh my gosh. I told you. Oh, I'm gonna have to tell the guys about that. See ya.
At the ballet studio, Lori Beth is about to leave for Richie's game as well, but Colleen is waiting for Fonzie. He's so thoughtful.
Last night, all I did was mention that I liked fresh flowers, and he stopped the bike and dug up 2 wild azalea bushes.
Lori Beth leaves, mentioning that the last time she was late to one of Richie's games,
He fined me $2.
what the heck, Richie? That's a weird thing to do to anyone, but especially your girlfriend. When Fonzie arrives, he notices Colleen is sad, and she admits she's thinking of closing down the studio, since she only has 5 students. Maybe she'll go to New York, study there. Fonzie says there won't be a problem. Colleen wanted azaleas, he got her azaleas. She wants students, he'll get her students. That night at the Cunningham house, Howard and Marion are leaving to watch a movie, and Howard comments that Joni should take up basketball, since it might be the only way she gets into college. Joni protests that her grades are good, but her behavior is bad enough that one of her teachers calls her
Yak face.
Richie comes home and happily boasts about how he won his team the game.
The kid came through in the clutch again.
Fonzie arrives and tries to sell everyone on taking ballet classes. Joni likes the idea the most, especially the chance to get lifted by hunks. Howard's okay with the idea as long as it doesn't cost too much and Joni behaves.
I don't want to hear the teacher calling you yak toe.
Fonzie gives Joni a form to fill out, and then asks Richie if he'd be interested. A few days later at the ballet studio, Richie, Ralph, Potsy, and Joni have joined Colleen and Lori Beth for class, with Fonzie watching and Chachi on music duty. Colleen asks everyone to say why they joined, and Ralph says he's always loved the ballet.
I ache for the ballet. Sometimes I even get ballet aches.
Bad pun aside, Colleen has Lori Beth demonstrate a plie, and when everyone in the class does it, Ralph splits his pants and has to wear a tutu for the rest of the day. They do pirouettes and lifts, with all the requisite sitcom hijinks. By the time the class is almost over, every student is exhausted. Too exhausted to help Colleen in a routine that will show them all what they can accomplish someday.
I'm too tired to even watch.
Fonzie tries to get Richie to help Colleen, but Richie manages to spin it around on Fonzie. Upon being badgered by everyone, Fonzie agrees to do it, and he and Colleen perform a lovely routine. After everyone else has left, Colleen thanks Fonzie for the new students. Fonzie says that was only the first class, and calls him the second class, consisting of various random older people and Al. The next night at Arnold's, Fonzie asks to borrow Richie's car to take out Colleen, since it's a chilly night. Richie says he has to drop some homework off at Lori Beth's, but he'll be right back. Before Richie leaves, he asks Fonzie if Colleen is really happy. Fonzie thinks Colleen must be happy. Her school is thriving. Richie mentions that Colleen is taking a dance class in Chicago, and her teacher says Colleen might be the best dancer she's ever seen. She could be a great performer, and you don't practice ballet to teach it.
You practice it to do it, bucko.
And angry Fonzie storms out. Back at the studio, Fonzie finds Colleen dancing alone, and beautifully at that. He doesn't interrupt her until she's done, and he tells her she should go to New York to dance. Colleen's afraid she's not good enough, but Fonzie says if she wants it that bad, she needs to give it a shot instead of wondering what could have been. He even quotes Richie's line about not studying ballet to teach it.
You don't study ballet for that many years to teach it. You study ballet to perform it.
Colleen is encouraged, and decides to go through with it. She can stay with some girlfriends in New York. She goes to get ready for their date, leaving a forlorn Fonzie alone. Richie shows up at the studio with the keys to his car.
Culture. Bye.
Fonzie tells him the news about Colleen, and almost admits Richie was right. Richie says that was a great thing he did, and offers to hang around if Fonzie needs it. Fonzie turns him down, and Richie leaves. Colleen comes down, dressed, and convinces Fonzie to do one last dance.
Not my kind. Yours.
Not her kind, but Fonzie's. They slow dance together.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was Do You Want to Dance, which first aired back on May 9th, 1978. That night, Happy Days finally returned from a 2-month hiatus and served as the lead into a brand new Laverne and Shirley, in which the girls attend a debutante ball with Lenny.
Not Lenny!
Not Lenny!
Meanwhile, NBC was running a comedy special called Comedy Tonight with Cleavon Little, Paula Kelly, Todd Bridges, and Paul Lynde. And CBS was running the 1960 John Wayne film, The Alamo.
John Wayne, Richard Widmark, Lawrence Harvey, Richard Boone. Remember The Alamo.
So, Peter, of those choices, what are you watching?
Not the John Wayne movie, that's for sure.
I think I'm going to have to watch Comedy Tonight, and I'll tell you why. This episode of Happy Days will be around for decades, and you can watch it whenever you want.
But you can't find Comedy Tonight anywhere?
It doesn't even have a Wikipedia entry. It
Oh,
doesn't
wow. That is obscure.
If you don't see Comedy Tonight with Cleavon Little on May 9th, 1978, you are never going to see it again. Do You Want to Dance was directed by Jerry Paris and was written by Fred Fox Jr. The most recent of Fred's episodes that we covered was Potsy Gets Pinned. Fred started as a writer on Happy Days in season 4, and he eventually got promoted to supervising producer. He stayed with the show all the way to the end, and he even worked on the reunion show in 2005. As for guest stars this week, we only have one, Leslie Brown as Colleen. She was a real-life prima ballerina from a family of dancers in New York, and all her acting roles revolve around dancing. Director Herbert Ross used her 3 times in his movies, The Turning Point, Nijinsky, and Dancers. She even got an Oscar nomination for The Turning Point from 1977, playing basically a fictionalized version of herself.
To every life, there comes a moment when there is no turning back. The Turning Point.
After this episode, she went on to be a principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater. Since retiring from dancing in the 1990s, she has been a choreographer and a dance teacher.
As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I would have been a ballet dancer had it not been for my family. I just kind of followed into the family business, and my mother was really adamant about me pursuing ballet.
So, Peter, what did you think of Leslie Brown as Colleen?
She is an excellent dancer. Both of the routines she does in this episode are really, really impressive and beautiful to watch. And yeah, I absolutely see why she got cast. She's an all-right actress. But yeah, if she hadn't been as good a dancer as she was, then I don't think this episode would have worked.
I would say that as an actress, she is an excellent dancer. The main flaw I can see with her performance is that she just kind of yells all of her lines in a monotone.
New York. Oh, I don't know, Fonzie. What if I'm not good enough?
There's not really a lot of subtlety or nuance to her character. Her dancing is amazing in this episode. I think she's fantastic as a dancer, but I just wasn't buying the acting portion of it. I was kind of mediocre on this character.
That's fair.
Leslie is the latest in a string of non-actors to guest star on Happy Days, or people who are basically famous for something else. Now we've had Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids, we've had Charles Galeotto, we had Susie Quattro. Where in that pantheon do you think Leslie Brown fits?
I think Susie Quattro is the best, if only because she keeps coming back and she's definitely improved as an actress over time. I'd put Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids in the number 2 slot, and then Leslie Brown, and then Charles Galeotto. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, Charles was obviously famous for doing coin tricks, and I think he does an acceptable job with the acting. I wouldn't say any of these are natural actors. I think it's telling that Leslie Brown never got cast as anything other than a dancer in movies and television shows. That was it. That was what she always played. None of those other people ever did other acting other than as themselves or as versions of themselves. My favorite is still Susie Quattro. I think she kind of gets with the program a little bit more as her appearances go along. And also they've written in more of a backstory and a past and a personality for Leather Tuscadero, which they don't for Colleen. Colleen is still kind of a mystery to me. Who was this person? As for songs this week, we hear a little bit of the Military Polonaise, composed by Frédéric Chopin in 1838. And there is a lengthy and incredibly elaborate version of the Happy Days theme, including a waltz portion.
Yes, and it's great.
Incidentally, Gary Mentier choreographed this episode as he did with Be My Valentine, and I think his choreography here is even more impressive. So that's the main reason to watch this, and to watch her routine with Henry Winkler. As for cultural and historical references of the week, this episode takes its title from a 1958 hit single by Bobby Freeman. It was later covered by the Beach Boys and by Bette Midler. Fonz borrows some Mantovani albums from the Cunninghams. Annunzio Paolo Mantovani was an Italian composer and a conductor who was known for his light, romantic instrumental music. Though never taken seriously by the music critics, Mantovani was incredibly popular in the 1950s and 60s with a string of hit albums and singles. In fact, he was one of the best-selling recording acts of his day. I used to go to used record stores a lot, and there were always just rows and rows of old Mantovani albums in there. And
So, like, thousands of people regretted buying Mantovani albums and just donated them to used record stores.
well, I think part of it was that his audience was older and they were just dead by the time I came along. Throughout this episode, we see a poster depicting Serge Lafar, a French ballet dancer of Ukrainian origin.
The celebrity of ballet was constantly offered French citizenship. However, the maestro spent his entire immigrant life with a temporary passport. Serge Lafar remained Ukrainian forever.
Serge is considered one of the great ballet dancers of the 20th century and the successor to Nijinsky. The poster itself was designed by Paul Colin, considered one of France's greatest poster artists. Both Serge and Paul were still alive at the time of this episode. We also see a poster that says Royal Aquarium Grand Ballet. This is a 1975 reproduction of a poster from 1880. The Royal Aquarium was an amusement center in London from 1876 to 1903. It was demolished and replaced with the Methodist Central Hall, which is still... The Methodist Central Hall is just an entertainment venue as well, as far as
okay.
it's just like a concert place. Out in the hall, outside the dance studio, is a poster for the American Ballet Theater, also known as ABT. This is a classical ballet company founded in 1939. They perform at the Met for 5 weeks each spring. Then they tour the world the rest of the year. I imagine 2020 did not go great for the American Ballet Theater. I don't think it was a banner year for them.
Yeah,
but
probably.
in case anyone was wondering, yes, azaleas are known to grow wild in Wisconsin. I looked into it. There was actually an academic paper about the azaleas of Wisconsin and Minnesota.
These are the same exact spots where you wanted me to plant those disgusting azalea bushes.
I love that you read academic papers about botany for our Happy Days podcast. You consistently go above and beyond, and I admire you so much for that.
Lori Beth uses some ballet terminology.
Chassé, pas de bourrée, and Pierrot. I'll work on it.
Chassé is a dance step where you stick one leg out and then the other leg slides up to meet it. The name comes from chase, because one leg is chasing the other. Pas de bourrée is a sideways step in which one foot crosses behind or in front of the other, and pirouette is the act of spinning on one foot.
Après-vous, that's French, you know?
Après-vous is indeed French. It means after you. The plie is a bending of the knees. A grand plie is a full bending of the knees. It is not a dessert, despite what Patsy says.
Let's start with Grand Plie.
I already had dessert.
First position is standing straight up, legs together,
pen held lightly but firmly in the right hand,
feet pointing outward and elbows slightly bent. And just as I tried push-ups for the physical episode and I tried coin snatching for the coin snatching episode, I did attempt some of these ballet positions and moves just to get a feel for it for this podcast, and I did not enjoy them at all.
I did ballet when I was 6, and I enjoyed it. It's probably one of those things that's more fun if you start it when you're 6.
Fonz says that the cream of the crop is the June Taylor dancers. June Taylor was a choreographer from Chicago, most famous for founding a dance troupe called the June Taylor Dancers, who performed each week on the Jackie Gleason Show.
Tonight we are going to present the June Taylor Dancers and the 13-year-old violin virtuoso, Charles Castleman, in an exciting version of Bumble Boogie.
In her own way, June was an innovator. She had to devise a dance style that would play well on blurry, low-resolution TV screens.
Oh, wow.
And I think the joke here is that Fonzie's idea of high culture would be Mantovani and the June Taylor dancers. Now, this last point was very frustrating to me. Colleen says she hopes to study with a dancer she calls the best of them all, and she points to his poster.
And maybe even I can study with him, Turgenev, the best of them all.
The closed captioning says Turgenev, which would be great, except Ivan Turgenev was a novelist who died in 1893. There don't seem to be any prominent male dancers named Turgenev. The men typically named as best male ballet dancers are Baryshnikov, Nureyev, and Nijinsky. She doesn't say any of those names.
I basically just threw up my hands and decided, okay, maybe in the Happy Days universe, some dude named Turgenev is the best dancer of the 1950s.
Other observations this week, not much. I kind of like the way that Fonzie shuts down Richie with a simple no.
Fonz, you gonna come down and see the kid tear him up tonight? Oh, intramural action at its finest. No.
It's pretty great.
Linda Goodfriend has to pretend to be kind of a bad or a clumsy dancer at the beginning of this episode. We know that she is not one. Despite being the one new student genuinely interested in ballet.
Ballet? Oh, I love ballet.
Joni gets absolutely nothing to do during the ballet class scene. She just sits in a chair in the corner for the whole thing.
It's such BS.
I like the staging of Colleen's solo dance number, especially with Fonz watching from behind a mirror. I just really like the way that was staged. In fact, I thought Jerry Paris did a great job of directing this episode. I will ask you this, Peter. Has there ever been an episode where Richie was stubbornly wrong about something or in denial about something, and Fonzie steered him right? Or is it always the other way around?
Bye Bye Blackball?
Yes, you're right. Good. That's a great example. Richie is thinking about joining the snob fraternity, and then Fonzie is the one who tells him that the snob fraternity is not cool.
Fonzie, you do not understand the way a fraternity works.
I might not understand fraternities, but I understand dumping friends.
It is a two-way street. It's not always where Fonzie is the one willfully turning a blind eye to something for his own benefit. So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions this week?
I really liked what Colleen was wearing during her dance scene. She's wearing this really pretty blue leotard and this kind of flowy see-through bluish skirt. It's really pretty and it looks really nice during the routine. I also really liked what Lori Beth was wearing during the ballet class scenes. She's wearing this red leotard with a matching red skirt, which also looks really nice.
I also want to give a shout out to Marion's going to PTA outfit. She wears a very nice outfit to go to the parent-teacher conference. She almost looks like a British female equestrian.
Oh my God, she does. Is it the hat?
It is the hat. So did you have any other observations that you wanted to make about Do You Want to Dance?
How did Richie know all of that about Colleen's teacher thinking she's a great dancer and Colleen wanting to go to New York to study?
Well, you know, she takes that ballet class in Chicago. And her teacher there says that he thinks she might be the best dancer he's ever seen.
Because Lori Beth probably told him.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Until now, I was speculating that maybe Colleen just told all of this to her class when Fonzie wasn't there. She just started going on a I could have been a contender speech.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Also, it's super weird that Richie fined Lori Beth $2 for being late to a basketball game, right?
That is very weird.
This episode is simultaneously a pretty good Richie episode where he's the one to confront Fonzie and get him to see the truth and support his girlfriend in going to another state to follow her dreams. And he offers to be there for Fonzie at the end when Fonzie might need it. And also a really bad one because it implies that he fines his girlfriend money for being late to an intramural game of his.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old, timeless question. Was this episode any good?
I think it was pretty good, but I also feel like it could have been better. With a couple of rewrites and maybe a slightly stronger performance from Leslie Brown, I think this could have been a really great episode. As it is, it's kind of middling. The dancing is great, though, and if you're just looking for that, then by all means, check this episode out.
I would say pretty much the same thing. The ballet stuff is pretty great. And I wanted to really love this episode. And the thing that kept me from really loving it is just the fact that at the center of it is this very blank person, Colleen. Maybe it's just because of how it's written. Maybe Fred Fox Jr. doesn't know how a real ballet dancer would talk or act. So they've written her as very, very generic with no real depth to her at all. That was the thing that kept me from really loving Do You Want to Dance? But in a way, I feel like I'm being too picky because other than that, this episode has some great dance sequences. I thought it was really staged well and directed very well. And Leslie Brown is a fantastic dancer and is certainly not unpleasant to watch as an actress. All in all, I would say definitely do watch Do You Want to Dance? Oh, what did you think of Henry Winkler's dancing, by the way?
I thought he was pretty good. Colleen obviously did most of the work in their dance routine, but Henry Winkler stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of what Ron Howard had to do in Be My Valentine in his dance number with Linda Goodfriend. Linda Goodfriend obviously had to do most of the work, but Ron didn't screw it up. And that's mostly what Fonz is asked to do here, is just kind of go along with it. I think he acquits himself admirably. I think Do You Want to Dance is a good episode that almost could have been a great episode. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Wolfranc. That's PeterVulfranc.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysareours.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysarepodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, Al is going to get an award, and he needs to find a date.
Is this our first Al-centric episode?
I think so.
Well, I'm excited for that. So
me too. I love Al. Not as much as I love Arnold, but I do love Al.
I do too. So see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Culture. Bye.